How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Perfect Reload Weekly, where we take a look back at the week in video game news. My name is Steve, and we had some interesting stuff happen over the past week. We got an Xbox partner preview, which we're going to dive into, and we also had the Mario 10 day stuff get announced over the weekend. We had a major game release last week in WWE 2K24, which we'll touch upon, and the addiction to Balatro is still going pretty strong. Yeah, I didn't have once again kind of the same story, different week. Didn't have a ton of time to dive into stuff. I had an incredibly busy past few days. But I did get a chance to play a little bit of variety of stuff before we dive into the larger stuff with WWE 2K24. Like I said, Balatro stuff is still going strong. Playing quite a bit of that when I have the time. I probably should be spending a little bit more time with WWE, but the pull of Balatro is just too strong. I have multiple wins now. I'm winning more than I lose at this point for the most part. I ended up doing a second profile, which I've seen a lot of people do, where on your main profile, you leave everything kind of as a default. And then on the second profile, you do like a fully unlocked profile. So you have all the jokers, all the decks, all that stuff. So I've been messing around with that over the past couple of days. Just kind of screwing around with some of the advanced decks that you can unlock, and just having a really good time with it. And that's kind of like reinvigorated my desire to play the game, because on the main profile, I got to the point where, the only way I was going to unlock more was by finishing higher and higher and higher difficulties, which is incredibly hard to do. And when I'm kind of low on time, it's difficult to sit there and grind and grind and grind. So it was nice to switch over. I'm still going back to the other profile to unlock things, the organic way, but it's fun to kind of play that game with kind of like no boundaries, I guess you would say. All jokers are available to you and all that. And it's quite a bit of fun. I dipped my toes finally into some more Call of Duty. I've only got to play season 2 a little bit, but I really enjoyed what they did. But they did their mid-season update. I want to say it was this past week, maybe it was the week before, and they brought back Das Haus as a map. That was a map that was in Call of Duty Vanguard. It was probably one of the standout maps in that game that was new to that game. It was a fun map to play, very chaotic, very difficult to maintain any type of momentum. I would actually wager to say that it's more difficult to gain momentum and keep things going on Das Haus than it is on something like Shipment, which is just like pure chaos. Maybe that's just because I've played so much Shipment. I kind of understand a little bit more of the strategy and the layout of the map, but got to play some matches over the weekend. I don't know if they changed anything, or maybe it's just because I hadn't played the game in a few weeks, but everything felt very, very slow when I was playing over the weekend. And I don't know if it was because they had changed something, or it's just me not remembering quite right. But I switched classes to like a lighter gun to have more mobility, and everything still felt kind of slow. I don't know if maybe they patched something. Maybe something was tweaked along the way. I haven't been doing my best at keeping up with the patch notes, but most likely it was just me not remembering, how the game actually played. But I ended up having quite a bit of fun. Other than that, the next new game I played we'll save WWE for last, since that's what I spent the most time with, was Berserk Boy. Berserk Boy is yet another game in that style of Battle Circuit and 30XX and 20XX, which was, the predecessor to 30XX. It's a Mega Man style game, whereas the 30XX was more of a run based thing. Battle Circuit was kind of a traditional, Mega Man style game. This is, fairly traditional Mega Man style game, but it is, it's a Metroidvania as well. I think it plays pretty good. I like the look of it. I like the overall feel of it. The limited amount of time I spent with it, I do feel is probably a stronger game than Battle Circuit and 30XX were last year. Although Battle Circuit I liked. I actually thought that was pretty good. I hung with that game for more time than I thought I was going to. But Berserk Boy, you know, it's not bad. I'm not writing it off. I'm gonna play some more of it when I have the time. You know, it's thankfully it's one of those games you can kind of play in chunks. You know, you don't have to really dedicate a ton of time to it. But overall, you know, pretty solid. I like the music, you know, like the look, the, you know, writing and overall story is pretty bland. It's pretty tropey. You know, just not really my thing. But you know, that you're not coming to this style of game for the story, you're coming for the gameplay. And I think the gameplay holds up pretty well. It was getting a decent amount of praise online. I didn't see any like actual published reviews. I'm sure they're out there. I just didn't see any come across when I was searching through the news and stuff. But you know, I saw some people talking on social media saying that they were enjoying their time with it. And, you know, I agree. I enjoyed my time with it, as well. There are a couple other things that came out this week that I was hoping to have had, or this past week, I was hoping to have had time to check out, but I just didn't. And that is Summer House, which is a like very casual, I don't even know if they're not even classifying it as a city builder. It's like a street builder. I took a look at like the trailer and some screenshots and I was like, I'm curious enough. I have it ready to go. I just haven't gotten a chance to open it. And then that new Contra came out, which apparently is actually pronounced Project Galaga. Maybe they couldn't spell it like the video game due to copyright issues, but they have it spelled like Galuga. And so in my mind, I thought it was just Project Galuga. And then I watched the IGN video review and he was saying Project Galaga. I was like, okay. But it's a reimagining of the original Contra. It's got a 4-player, I believe, co-op. I'm going to try and check that out for next week's episode if I can remember. But I definitely will be playing. I just had it, Summer House, by the next episode, and so we'll have that to look forward to. Let me see if there's anything else coming out over the next week. Yes, there is. No. Okay. Next week is MLB The Show. That won't be out. There's actually really nothing this week. So maybe I'll see if there's any indie games that pop up along the way, and we'll have stuff to talk about for next week. But I guess we'll move on to the main course, I guess, for new releases and when I play, and that is WWE 2K24, now fully committed to their springtime release schedule after, for the most part, always coming out, you know, in the fall in October. They took the year off and then delayed it when they came back, and now they've been on the spring cycle ever since, which makes sense because WrestleMania is coming up. You know, they're knee deep in the middle of their biggest like promotional period of the year, so it makes sense for their game to come out now rather than towards the end of the year when, yes, there's Survivor Series in November, but you know, that's not publicized the way that WrestleMania is. So I think it makes a little bit more sense for it to come out now. The main thing this year is the 40 years of WrestleMania mode, which is just the same showcase mode that they have been doing. They've done a John Cena one and a Rey Mysterio one, which are like career retrospectives. And this time it's the biggest matches of the 40 years of WrestleMania, as we're about to have WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia in a few weeks. It's the same formula, nothing new. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're not really making any changes. You play the matches exactly how they happened in real life. You follow along. They do their thing where they stitch together actual video footage of the match with animation from the game, and then also you playing the game. Every time you finish a match, you unlock stuff, and you know, you rinse repeat until you're done with the mode. They have their My Rise mode, which is their single player, or not single player, but like locked into a created character mode. They have one for male wrestlers, one for female wrestlers. They did the same thing last year. I'm a couple hours into the male wrestler one. It's actually like fairly well written, pretty well done. The story has been, you know, solid so far. They've done that. They've really done the same thing for a while now, where it was either you started off in WWE and then got kicked out and had to come back, or you were like on your way to WWE and then got side railed and had to go back. And they always found like a way to get you back out on the indies and stuff. I don't know if that's where this is going. I hope it's not, because that would just be very bizarre. But I did see that those indie venues are locked as arenas that you can unlock in the game. And I'm wondering, maybe that's on the female wrestler side of things. Maybe that's how that story goes. I think from seeing the game's trailer, it looked like you started off maybe on the indies in that one. So maybe that's how that all unlocks. But so far in the male wrestler side of thing, you are an established wrestler. I believe you've been on the main roster of WWE for at least a year when the story begins. So you are a somewhat like known quantity in the world of WWE as you are playing. You level up throughout, although if you pre-order the game, they give you this massive like point boost that you can apply that immediately shoots you into like the mid to high 80s for your overall ranking. So, you don't feel like you're struggling to keep up with the CPU. That's like a big problem with like the NBA games is you start so low ranked, like you're lower ranked than like some of the undrafted free agents in that game, and you're supposed to be a high draft pick. And it's it's because that's how they get you. They get you with the microtransactions and try and get you to buy their virtual currency to upgrade your character. But in the WWE games, they don't care about that. They just freely give you coins and you get stuff for just playing the game and all that. So they have other ways to microtransact you, which is the My Faction mode, which I don't play, I don't touch, I don't know anything really about it aside from it's like a card collecting type thing. That's all I know. It's in this year's game. But in terms of the way the game actually plays, fairly identical to last year. There's some new match types: guest referee, ambulance match, and casket match. Ambulance match and casket match have the same concept. You get them either into the back of the ambulance or into the casket. Button mash to close the door on both. Rinse, repeat. In the video I put up on the channel of me playing the game, we do an ambulance match, so you can kind of see how that works. That video, I apologize, that got copyrighted claimed to hell from WWE, and it was weird. It was they didn't even claim it as like their own footage. They claimed it as I was ripping off a DVD that they had released like 15-16 years ago, and I was like, okay, that's odd, but whatever. So they ended up like muting a bunch of audio in it and forcing me to cut out like I think almost 6 or 7 minutes of footage in it. So the back half of that video is all chopped to hell. So it was better than not putting it up, so it is what it is. They have a streamer friendly mode, which I had turned on, which I thought was funny. Not funny that they have it because that, it's good. You don't want to get like copyright claims because of the music, because there's licensed music in the game. They had Post Malone curate the soundtrack this year, but what ends up happening is not only does it take out copyrighted music, it also mutes some of the audio during some of the presentation stuff. So you'll have like a talking head explaining what's going on and it mutes the audio for that. I don't know if it's because there's music playing underneath or what it is, but I watched some of the video back and I was like, oh, I didn't mute that part. That's weird because the video's not muted. You can hear me talking. It's the game muted itself due to their streamer friendly mode. And I was like, that's strange, but all right. So, interesting choice there, but I like the way the game plays so far. I think I've spent 6-7 hours with it, something like that. So certainly not enough time to really, get everything, every mode played or every mode touched or all that stuff. I spent some time in the creation stuff, creating a character, spent some time downloading community stuff to see what people are doing, just playing some exhibition matches and stuff like that. And, I am enjoying it. I'm looking forward to having a little bit more time with it. I'm hoping I have a little bit less busy week this week, but you never know. And spend some time with it. But yeah, I think it's a solid effort for them. I think they've definitely been doing really well with their games the past few years. And, they're just kind of on an upward trajectory with the WWE games. And, AEW's game was kind of a swing and a miss. So it didn't really pose any real threat to WWE. WWE is on a high right now, with getting Vince McMahon out of the company, with Triple H being in charge. The creative is better. The on-screen product is better. It's kind of an exciting time in WWE, not just because it's WrestleMania season, but just, the product as a whole has been better. And honestly, AEW has been kind of doing fairly well as well. I actually had to stop watching AEW for a while. I was having, so AEW starts at 8 p.m. my time, and I was having a lot of mandatory staff meetings at work that were until like I wasn't getting home until like 9 or 9:30, and and those were on Wednesdays. So I was missing AEW Dynamite. I missed AEW Dynamite for like 2.5 months, but those are done now, and I have my Wednesday nights back. So I've actually been able to watch the past couple of weeks and watch the last pay-per-view that they did, for Sting's retirement match. And I think the AEW is kind of starting to pick up because up around the time that I had to stop watching just because I wasn't home. I was kind of down a little bit on AEW. I thought some of their creative choices were kind of falling flat, kind of bland, and WWE was doing really well. It's kind of an exciting time to watch it. And it's nice that they're both kind of back, somewhat on equal footing. They're both doing well. And as a wrestling fan, that's all you can ask for is you want both products to be doing well because it gives you options to watch, just more entertainment for you. So yeah, I think wrestling games right now, AEW is a swing and a miss, but WWE 2K24 is pretty solid. So I definitely give it a recommendation. But yeah, that's going to do it for what I've been playing and the new releases and all that good stuff. And we'll be back in just a moment with the news. All right, we are back with the news, and we are going to kick things off with Warner Brothers because they are constantly in the news lately. They have reiterated their plan to have an increased focus on free-to-play and live service games. This is coming from Time Ivan over at VGC News. So, JB Perrette, the company's CEO of global streaming and games, at a recent at a conference for Morgan Stanley, said the majority of our business revolves around 4 main forms of IP and games, which are all billion-dollar plus businesses themselves. I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a little heartburn today. He considers those Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, DC, and Harry Potter, which I don't blame them, but they haven't done anything really with Game of Thrones. There have been Game of Thrones video games, none of which were like major hits. And they did put, I know at least Arya from Game of Thrones was in Multiverses, which was their Smash Brothers game, which is actually, they just announced it's coming back this summer. So that was interesting. And then, they talk about last year's Harry Potter game, Hogwarts Legacy, was the best-selling game of last year, but Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, was a big kind of flop this year. His quote continues, "The challenge we've had is that our business historically..." What did he say? I don't know if this is badly written down or I'm sorry. "The challenge we've had is that our business historically..." I think he meant to say in our business historically, there has been very AAA console. Okay, I don't know what the hell he's trying to say here. I don't know if Tom screwed up writing this or if he just JB Perrette doesn't know how to speak correctly. I'm going to have to paraphrase here. I think what he's trying to say is that historically, the video game industry is based upon AAA console games. And he says that's a great business when you have a hit like Harry Potter. It makes the game, or it makes the year look amazing. And then when you don't have a release, or unfortunately, we have also disappointments. What? Okay, I think he's just saying, having a tradition. Okay, I apologize. I feel like I'm having a stroke trying to read this guy's paragraph. If you want to read this is on VGC's website. It's the 3rd paragraph in the article. But I think what he is trying to say is that the traditional output of having a AAA single player title is great when it works and bad when it doesn't, which, yes, that's how things work. So he talks about how Harry Potter was a hit, but Suicide Squad didn't work. He's saying that makes the video game industry volatile. Yes, this is all very much common sense. I think that's what he's trying to get to. So he says, following, we think the opportunity for us, which again, this is a multi-year opportunity because games is certainly a bit of a long cycle business too, but the opportunity is to take those 4 franchises and be able to develop a much more holistic approach, particularly around expanding into the mobile and multi-platform free-to-play space, which could give us a much better and consistent set of revenue. You'll see us launching later this year some mobile games that are free-to-play, which we hope to start building that. Is this man real or is he just Chat GPT in human form? Because I wonder if is maybe English is not his first language. I don't want to be mean if he is, if maybe he is not, the English language is very difficult. So I don't want to say anything if that's the case. No, he's from America. Okay. Figure your shit out there, JB. All right. So yeah, essentially, he's talking about that they're going to start shifting to doing more mobile and free to play and live service stuff, which they did. Suicide Squad's a live service game. They have done mobile Mortal Kombat games. I believe there's at least 1 or 2 mobile Harry Potter games. I know there's been some mobile Game of Thrones games, I don't know if those were done by Warner Brothers themselves or if that was like a license given to somebody else and it wasn't published under Warner Brothers games. That I'm not familiar with. But I guess, expect a bunch of free to play and mobile stuff to come. Now, that being said, you would think, oh, that would be silly to interject that into the next Hogwarts Legacy because that was the best selling game of the year and it was a single player game. Well, au contraire, because it sounds like the next Hogwarts Legacy game is indeed going to be a free to play, or not, I'm sorry, not a free to play game, a live service game, which is somebody who really enjoyed that game. It was one of my favorite games to come out last year. I am not looking forward to that. And, whenever that game comes out, most likely 2026, I would imagine. If it's chock full of live service stuff, then I'm happily okay with just not playing it, despite the fact that I really enjoyed the first game. I'm not going to succumb to the shoehorning of live service stuff just because it's a property or an IP or a sequel or what have you to something that I really enjoy. I'm okay with just abandoning the franchise if that's the case. No, not everybody's going to do that. That's what they're banking on. They're banking on everybody doing this because that's the issue with the video game industry right now, is that all of these executives are hoping that they can put out a game. And it doesn't matter what game, but just any game that they put out can be the only game that you play. And that's just not the way things work. Now, not everybody's like me that has to play a lot of different games for the purposes of talking about them on a podcast. But there's also a lot of people that are casual video game players that aren't doing it for a hobby like this or perhaps professionally or whatever. They do play a wide variety of games and they don't have the time to get locked into one game. Or you have people that are just kind of playing that same game that they've been playing for years, a Destiny, a GTA Online, whatever it may be. And then that's their thing. And then they also sprinkle in some other games purchased throughout the year, but they don't really have enough time to add another live service game to the mix that they have to keep up with, or they don't want to replace the one that they are used to playing with a new one. Also, live service games typically mean multiplayer game, and that means you're going to need regular people to play with or constantly playing with random people. And in a persistent online game, you want to have that continuity of playing with the same group of people so everybody's kind of on the same level. So it makes it that you're adding layers and layers and layers of difficulty to it. And I think that there's just been a lot of pushback against live service stuff by the user base that is seemingly gone ignored by publishers and developers that are making these decisions. And I think over the next couple of years, it's going to be a very make or break kind of thing. I ultimately think the live service push is going to fail. I think that there are already too many cracks in the foundation to safely say that I'm going to be wrong on that. You have a lot of live service games that have launched over the past couple of years that have completely failed. You have a lot of live service games that have had sustainable user bases start to dip. You've had games shut down. You've had games have to take a different approach to how they do things. You look at something like Destiny, which is pretty much abandoned getting new players into the fold. They're pretty much in maintenance mode to keep their core player base happy. They're not really doing much to bring in new people. I can't tell you the last time I saw, I used to see Destiny commercials during basketball games all the time. I'm not really seeing that. The video game commercials, I watch a lot of sports, and sports always have video game commercials. There's always video game commercials during live sports. And right now, probably over the past month of watching the NBA, I want to say the only game I've really seen advertised, and granted, there hasn't been a super big hit so far, is I've seen commercials for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I've seen commercials for MLB The Show. And that's about it. These games that used to advertise all the time to try and bring new people in just really aren't doing it. I thought it was a really smart thing when last year during one of the Microsoft presentations, they did the Elder Scrolls Online thing, and they talked about, hey, we are going to start making this game be a little bit easier for new people to get into because we have so many expansions and years worth of player base and lore built up and all of this stuff. So we are going to come up with some ways to get new people on board and make them feel comfortable jumping into such a big, universe of content to get through. And I think that was a really smart thing for them to do. And also with that game being on Game Pass now, it makes it just that much more accessible. They're hoping, of course, on the back end that they'll get people spending microtransactions, buying expansions, whatever, to, make their money back. But you don't really see that with a lot of that stuff. You see, some of these games like, Apex or Call of Duty that have their new season of content launching, they'll basically just advertise to their existing player base. I don't see that being advertised to the mainstream like I did in the past. And I think that everybody's just kind of in this mindset of we just need to maintain our current player base. It's too risky to try and get new people in by changing what's working because we need to keep that money flowing. If we make too many changes to make this thing more accessible or more friendly to new players, it alienates that player base that could drop off. And that's where the money is. We need to keep that satiated. And I think it's gonna be really difficult over the next couple of years for any new live service game to launch and be successful. So Sony's already canceled a bunch. Warner Brothers is trying to go all in on this stuff. How many of these actually end up seeing the light of day? And how many of the ones that do end up being viable from a financial standpoint? So we shall see. Moving on, we had the Xbox Partner Preview. I did the live stream of it the other day, and I thought it was a very nice event for being a tight half-hour event. I think they showed off a wide variety of games. There were a couple of games in there that we knew were coming out. There was a couple of new games tossed in there as well. We'll go through them real quick. So they showed off the Sinking City 2 from Frogwares. It's coming out in 2025. That game is not exclusive to the Xbox. It will be out on PS5 and PC. Creatures of Ava is a Spanish studios. It's being made by two Spanish studios, Inverge and Chibig. It's an action-adventure game where players tame creatures to save their world from a life-consuming infection. It's being co-created by Rihanna Pratchett, who I had to look up because they advertised that in the trailer. I had to look up to see what she had done. She is behind Mirror's Edge, Heavenly Sword, and two of the most recent Tomb Raider games, and I didn't realize she was also the daughter of Discworld's Terry Pratchett. So that's cool. I thought the game looked a lot like Chia, personally, but it was bright, fun, colorful, all that good stuff, and it'll be out on Game Pass some point later this year. Got a new Monster Jam game, Monster Jam Showdown, that's coming out on pretty much everything. Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, PS4, PS5, Switch, PC, with both Steam and the Epic Game Store, so that'll be on absolutely everything. Sleight of Hand, we didn't see any gameplay for that, just a cinematic trailer. Is a day one Game Pass release for Xbox and PC next year. It's also going to be on Steam. It's from a New Zealand-based development studio called Riff Raff Games. It's the person who was in charge of this did a puzzle game called Framed. I am not familiar with Framed. This seems to be a deck-based game, and they are marketing it as third-person noir stealth simulation. So we'll see how that goes. I am definitely interested in it. They're bringing the Stalker games to Xbox One and PS4. This is Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, Stalker Clear Sky, and Stalker Call of Pripyat. Stalker 2 is still in development, obviously being delayed due to the fact that the developers in the middle of a war in Europe, so they had to obviously make sure that they were safe. Their priorities above making a game. So it's nice to get these games out on console for those that want to check them out. These were legendary PC games at the time. Call of Pripyat was a huge deal. Shadow of Chernobyl was a huge deal, and so it's kind of cool to get them. I think the price is a little high. It's $40, and that's gonna be a little bit difficult because these were like kind of cult PC games. But there's an audience out there for them, and I'm sure there's gonna be some people that are excited for Stalker 2 that never played the original Stalker games that'll check it out. Persona 3 Reload expansion pass was announced, so it's going to have new costumes, new background music, and extended story content, and it's going to kind of come out in chunks throughout the year, ending in September 2024 when there's going to be the DLC episode Aegis The Answer. So that'll be pretty neat to check out. I gotta play some more of that. I've been having it sitting where I left off the week the game came out. So I definitely need to dig further into it. One of the games I was super excited to get a little bit more information about was Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess. This is a single player game from Capcom. It has the tradition of truly unique titles such as Okami and Shinsekai Into the Depths, according to Capcom's statement. It's coming to Xbox X and S, Windows, PS5, and Steam, and it will be available on Game Pass. So they showed this off last year. I can't remember if this was during their summer. Actually, it was during their summer presentation, essentially their E3 presentation. And it looked essentially kind of like, Okami, like a single player action, game. And then when we saw this new trailer, there's actually a whole kind of tower defense element to it. You kind of set things up with getting AI controlled or CPU controlled villagers to help you out, and setting up defenses and all that stuff. And then at night, all these demons come out. You're trying to get this princess to safety. And it definitely has way more layers to it than I think a lot of people were expecting. So I thought that was pretty cool. They showed off more of Tales of Kanzara Zao, which is coming out not that long from now, April 23rd. Let's see here. The first Berserker had a new gameplay trailer. This is set in the Dungeon and Fighter universe, which I'm not familiar with, coming out on Xbox X and S and PS5. And then 11-Bit Studios showed off quite a bit of stuff. The first of which was The Altars, which I guess had been announced previously and had a trailer out, but I was just not familiar with it. I don't know how I missed it. I thought it looked incredible. It was definitely my favorite thing that got shown off. I thought it looked really, really neat. The little bit of quote that they have is that the game has players take on the role of Jan Dolsky, a simple worker who creates alternate versions of himself in a desperate attempt to escape from a planet where even sun rays can prove deadly. I thought it looked really, really neat. Branching choices, some Fallout Shelter type management of people doing their jobs on this kind of rotating wheel of I guess you would say space station, sort of. It looks really, really cool. I was really enjoying what I saw from it. They also are doing a game with Bandai Namco called Unknown 9 Awakening, which is a third-person narrative-driven action-adventure game that follows the story of Haruna Quaster, born with the ability to venture into the fold, a mysterious dimension that overlaps our own. And then they also showed off some Frostpunk 2 stuff. And then last up, we got the news that Final Fantasy XIV will be released for Xbox Series X and S on March 21st. And just to backtrack for a moment, Frostpunk 2, they showed it off, but they also announced that it will be coming day and date to Game Pass on July 24th. So I'm super excited for that. So overall, I thought it was a very good partner preview. Like I said, a nice tight 30 minutes, wide variety of games, stuff that's coming out this year, stuff that's coming out in the future, kind of everything you need for Xbox, and definitely more than a few of those games coming to Game Pass to further strengthen that service. All right, next up, a bit of sad news, unfortunately. Akira Toriyama, who created Dragon Ball, passed away at the age of 68. Obviously Dragon Ball, ties into video games by the sheer number of Dragon Ball video games that have come out over the years. But he was also a character designer for Dragon Quest and Chrono Trigger. So very, very sad. There was a statement that, came out saying that he passed away on March 1st. Funeral was held with family and a few relatives. They're asking for people not to bother the family or anything like that. And they said they have not decided if they're going to hold any type of commemorative gathering for the public at this time. He was, huge in the world of anime, manga, character design in video games. I mean, he touched so many different mediums, so many classic franchises. He's responsible for the look and feel of a lot of different things. He actually had another game coming out called Sandland, which is based on a manga that he did. And there's another Dragon Ball game coming out, there's another Dragon Ball anime coming out as well. So yeah, very, very, very sad. I've never really watched a lot of anime. I think when I was a kid, when we in America got Dragon Ball for the first time on Cartoon Network, I probably watched the first episode like everybody did. They were hyping it up, you know, like to no end when it came out, but you know, nothing I stuck with. But I certainly spent my fair share of time with Dragon Quest and Chrono Trigger. So you know, definitely, you know, he had an impact on some of the games that I played. So very sad, but you know, he left behind one hell of a legacy. That's, you know, safe to say. All right, shifting away from that onto, I guess, some positive news, and surprisingly, some positive news that involves EA. They're bringing a series of PC classic games over to Steam. These are not games that have never been on PC before. In fact, most of these were on GOG, but now they're just available on Steam. The most notable of which is the Saboteur, which was actually delisted a few years ago, but is now back. That game has really garnered a cult following since its release. But the list of games: Command & Conquer, the Ultimate Collection, SimCity 3000 Unlimited, which is one of the greatest city builders of all time, if not the greatest, Populous 1, Populous 2, The Trials of the Olympian Gods, and Populous the Beginning, Dungeon Keeper Gold, Dungeon Keeper 2, Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri Planetary Pack, and, like I said, the Saboteur. I am still waiting for Sid Meier's Sim Golf to be released in some type of playable fashion on modern computers. Please, for the love of God, do that. And also bring back the movies, you bastards. But yeah, it's nice to see some of these great games be a little bit more accessible without Steam. Is not everybody, you know, a lot of people like to keep their PC games in one place. You know, I have an Epic game account, and I certainly purchased a few things through the Epic Store that were exclusives. And I have, you know, plenty of games on my GOG account. I think GOG Galaxy is still a thing. I don't know. But it's nice to have it on Steam. There's a lot of people that just won't leave Steam, so they wait for stuff to come there. So yeah, some cool PC classics. They're all pretty affordable. I don't know if the sale is still going on, but they were all like $5 or less, or $6 or less, or something like that. I think a couple of them are only like $2 or $3. So, you know, pretty easy to get in there. I mean, the Command & Conquer games, you know, that's a lot of hours of games, you know, for you to play. SimCity 3000, you know, you can sink 100 hours into that easily. I actually always had a soft spot for Alpha Centauri. I know it's not everybody's jam, but really liked it. And I actually spent quite a bit of time as a child playing Populous, because the babysitter I went to had the Super Nintendo version of it. So I have a weird affinity for specifically the Super Nintendo version of Populous. Also, we didn't have the manual for that game, so none of us knew exactly how it worked. But I, for whatever reason, kept coming back to play it. All right, we're going to wrap things up with the Mario Day stuff. This was yesterday for me, 2 days ago for you guys. So they officially announced the next Super Mario Brothers movie. It is in development, and they are targeting it for April 3rd, 2026. So actually a little bit farther away than I thought. I thought maybe they were going to try and rush it and get it out for next year. You know, it certainly wasn't going to come out this year, but I think that, you know, I think some people kind of thought like, oh, they got to try and get this out there, strike while the iron is hot. But, you know, it's going to do well no matter what. You know, people are going to be certainly looking forward to it. I thought it was a good movie. I think there were parts of it that were kind of, you know, my overall thought, I remember when I first saw it, is that it probably needed to be like 10 minutes longer. It felt a little bit kind of like smushed together, you know. Also, some of the actors I felt like really didn't pull their weight. Like Seth Rogen, you know, as Donkey Kong, I didn't think was really good. I did really enjoy the majority of the cast, though. You know, Jack Black as Bowser was fine. You know, Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach was quite good. I thought Chris Pratt was very good as Mario. Charlie Day was an excellent Luigi. But there was a couple like ancillary characters that I felt like weren't, you know, they're just kind of like, you know, their scenes weren't amazing, you know, but overall, very, very, very solid movie. They announced the dates for the Luigi's Mansion 2 HD release and the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake. Thousand Year Door remake is coming out on May 23rd, and Luigi's Mansion 2 will be releasing the following month on June 27th. You know, this is really the era of the remakes, remasters, compilations, all that kind of stuff, the weird side stuff like the Princess Peach game that's coming out soon, you know, because we're getting to the end of the Switch. I think, you know, for most of us, we thought the Switch was going to be done this year. We were going to have the new Nintendo console this year. It sounds like it's going to be next year, but you're still going to have plenty to pick up and play this year on the Switch. And there's a lot of people that really love the Thousand Year Door. So I think that game is going to probably do very, very well for them. Some new Switch Online games coming on March 12th. So that's today for those of you that are watching on the day of release for this video. Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, and Dr. Mario, all from the Game Boy / Game Boy Color, are coming over. new Mario Kart sets announced for Lego in 2025. I have not really kept up with the Mario Lego stuff. I don't have any of the Mario stuff because they don't consider it one of the Mario sets. I have the Nintendo, the NES Lego set with the television that you build that has the crank and the NES that you make itself. But yeah, actually, I guess thinking about it, I don't have any of the actual like Mario branded Lego sets. Those were more designed to not be set pieces. They were designed to kind of be played with. They do have the Mario Lego sets, like the hidden block is out there, and there is the Bowser. But those I wasn't sold enough on them. And honestly, I had to really scale back on Lego to zero because it's too expensive of a hobby to keep up with. Lego is really, I've seen this a lot online on some of the Lego forums I go to because I still really love Lego and I would love to get back into it. But it seems like the consensus now is that Lego has become a luxury item. It's not an affordable thing. It really has become something for people that make quite a bit of money to enjoy. There are sets that are $500, $600, $700 now, with the higher level stuff that they've done, stuff like the Roman Coliseum, the Titanic, some of the Star Wars, like Star Destroyer stuff, all that. They're probably going to crack $1,000 for a set soon. And it's just too much. I really enjoy the Lego modular buildings. They do one a year, typically at the beginning of the year. I haven't been able to do it the past couple of years. It's just too much. They're $250, $300, and it's just not there anymore. The days of having affordable Lego are just kind of completely gone. And they have really kind of transformed into a hobby for the rich. It has become a luxury brand for the most part, which I think is incredibly alienating for a lot of people, where a lot of Lego fans can only afford to do one set a year, maybe two. They've had to really drop off, and it doesn't help that Lego has really pumped up production. Every month there are probably 4 to 5 really high-end sets coming out that are very appealing. Like, you would want to get them, but you just can't. And then the fact that they're only on the market anywhere between 12 to 24 months, and then you can't get them, and then you go online and you're paying a crazy amount of price for them. When I got into the Lego hobby a few years ago, one of the sets I really wanted to get was they had done some Simpsons sets maybe 10, 15 years ago at this point. And I knew I was going to have to go on eBay. They weren't being made. And I looked them up, and I want to say at that time, things could change now. I think the Quickie Mart was anywhere between $500 to $700. The Simpsons house, I was seeing it from anywhere between like $300 to $700. Some of the early modular buildings before I got in are definitely in the $500 to $600 range. And it's just like, you just can't do it. You just can't keep up with it. So I follow a couple like Lego YouTube channels, and I just kind of live vicariously through that. But we'll get off the Lego rant here, but yeah, that's going to wrap up the show. I don't know if there's going to be anything on the channel this week. There's really no games coming out. If I have the time, and I'm enjoying that Summer House game, maybe I'll pop a video of that up on the channel later this week. But it's just really difficult to make promises right now for content without, aside from like games that are like actually coming. Like, I'll have an MLB The Show video next week, because it's a big release. But I thought on this past Saturday, to give you an example, I thought I was going to be gone for work for about 4 hours, and I ended up being gone for 13. So, I mean, that's more than half the day. I was on the road driving around doing stuff. I didn't finish until about 8 p.m., 9 p.m. that night. It was once I got home, I had to continue working from home. So it's just really difficult to gauge what kind of time, free time I'm going to have. I've been trying to see Dune in theaters since it came out. I've had to refund my ticket like twice now because, I think I'm going to have time to go and then have to, refund it because now I'm busy. I have a meeting, whatever it's going to be. And it's too long of a movie to see at night because I got to get up early the next day. So, it's just difficult. So yeah, I appreciate everybody's patience during this kind of like weird time with the channel. I'm hoping, things will balance out eventually. I did have that thought. I will be honest. The other day I did have the thought of just like putting all of this on hold and just shutting everything down until I have more time. But I feel like if I do that, I'm never going to get back to it. I need to at least get this show out every week. Which, I'm happy to do. I still love doing this. It doesn't matter who watches it. I just like doing it. So I'm going to keep doing it. But yeah, that's going to wrap everything up. And yeah, we'll see you again real soon.